Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one that I've wanted to share with you for quite some time now, and I'm finally ready to share with you some of the biggest mistakes I made when starting my small business. And for each point, I'm going to share what I would have done differently. If you're new to this channel, my name is Sarah, and I am the founder and the artist behind Selah Paper. Selah Paper is a stationery brand that I started in 2020. A lot of my work features Bible verses and calligraphy. And if you're curious about what my products look like, you can check it out at selahpaper.com. I'm going to be sharing 8 mistakes that I made over the past few years. Hindsight truly is 2020, and I wouldn't have learned these things unless I went through it myself. I also believe that everyone's circumstances are so different. So some of my learnings may not apply to you, but I do believe there is going to be something you can walk away with from my own mistakes. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is I launched without a clear vision or focus. It is so important to have a clear vision when starting anything, whether it's just like a small project or a business. Without that vision, it's going to be hard to make any decision, whether it's big or small. For me, this vision really got convoluted. I knew that my work would always be centered around calligraphy, and as a Christian, I really wanted to make art that explicitly had God's word on it. So that was loosely how I began, but at the same time, I was also very much involved in weddings. I was making invitations, signage, and it was just a lot of product offerings. Some of you may remember when I launched my business, I started off with Christian sympathy cards. So I had a lot of watercolor flowers, and the cards were very serious. And because those are my first products, it felt very weird to now make cards that were more playful. I kind of had an identity crisis. I wanted to explore different mediums like gouache and have a bit more of a graphic look. I was really confused about not just my aesthetic, but the overall vision for my business. Who is my ideal customer? Like, am I targeting brides? Christian brides? This isn't to say that you shouldn't explore different avenues or different target customers, but I think when you're starting out, it is important to have clear boundaries of who you're serving. Going back, I think I would have just focused on one thing. So if I was gonna do Christian cards, I would have just focused on Christian cards and trying to really reach my target audience of people who wanted to share their faith and encourage other believers with good contemporary Christian art. Or I could have just targeted brides and offered like a really elevated wedding experience. I was spreading myself way too thin. My website was so confusing because you would scroll and see like the sympathy cards, and then you would also see like wedding packages. You know, having this clear vision isn't to say that people can't pivot or evolve as a business, but that's going to come with time as you learn and find what works and doesn't work. With the clear vision, it also helps you know if you're making progress towards that thing. Okay, so coming off of that, the second mistake I made was still offering custom products while trying to run a product-based shop. And this goes along with just not having a vision. I was still doing custom commissions for people, large calligraphy pieces and custom little wedding jobs, all while trying to build out like a strong e-commerce shop. And it took me a long time to actually stop offering custom art. The problem with commission work is that it's not scalable and it's very time consuming. I used to spend hours making one print for somebody, and then I would sell it for a couple $100s. But now I can spend hours making that one print, then I scan it, digitize it, and I can sell it over and over again. Obviously, I'm not selling a print on my shop for hundreds of dollars, but if I can sell that print even 10 times, that is gonna cover the cost of a one-time commission. But this product can live on my shelf indefinitely. One moment where I realized this was just not going to work for me was when I was paying so many different subscriptions to service these 2 business models. I subscribed to Honeybook so that I could have like a workflow for my custom work clients. And then on the other end, I was also paying for like Etsy, Squarespace, Shopify to run an e-commerce website. These are 2 completely different business models. If I'm just going to be selling products that I make, the way my business runs would be that I create products, I learn to manufacture them, and then I sell them and market them. And there would be like a checkout process. If I'm serving clients with custom work, I would be invoicing them differently. I would have to have a lot more time scoping out the project and then actually designing and making a one-off project that I can't scale or resell. The way I get paid would be very different as well. And I would be spending a lot more time doing one-on-one customer communications. Managing these two things just stretched me so thin. I really wanted to build out a product-based business. That was like the goal, but commissions were such a big part of my revenue. But in hindsight, I think I would have been able to grow my product-based business a lot quicker if I had just cut this off, allocated all my energy and resources into growing my shop, and I don't think I would have actually lost that much revenue. Okay, the third mistake I made was not having a structured work routine to my week. So I went from having a corporate job that had demanding hours and a very rigid work schedule to being self-employed, and also being self-employed during COVID. I absolutely loved the flexibility and freedom that I found, but I was not good at allocating my time to the tasks that would make the most impact. And this is such a common thing. Like, this is why people procrastinate. Like, you don't want to do the hard thing, so you end up tackling all the easy things off the to-do list because it feels good checking it off. I spent a lot of time fiddling around with my website, making social media posts, doing emails or admin, and you can easily fill a whole week of work just doing those tasks. But those tasks do not really equate to the revenue coming in. What drives my revenue is doing outreach, making new products, and doing all the hard back-end stuff, like crunching some numbers, for example. I avoided those hard tasks. I know I'm an artist, but there was such a big barrier to sit down, open up my sketchbook, and create. Like, that's a muscle that I hadn't developed. I just loved the business aspect of things and wanted to spend all my time doing that. But what I'm learning, and this is something I'm still learning, especially after having a baby, is you really have to carve out time for the important things. And you want to block off the time so that you're able to do deep work for a couple of hours. For me, that looks like spending 1 or 2 evenings a week just painting or illustrating for 4 to 5 hours. It also means dedicating Friday mornings to doing my accounting. I block off time to do all the important things first, and I try really hard not to touch that, and everything else is just scheduled around those important things. At the start of this year, I actually sat down with a blank weekly calendar, and I did an exercise called Ideal Week where I map out my ideal week. And I found this very, very helpful. I can now see why my current week doesn't look like my ideal week, and I was able to really shift things around, reprioritize, try to get it to be as close to my ideal week as possible. If I was starting a business in 2024, I would look at the tasks that would bring in the most amount of revenue or impact to your business and prioritize those things first. The fourth mistake I made was ordering too much quantity and putting all my cash flow into my products. If you were around for the past few years looking at my studio vlogs, you would have seen me ordering thousands of cards at a time. I thought this was the only way to do it because other companies were doing it, and because there was such a high minimum order amount for some of the products I wanted to buy. For example, offset printing. You need to have at least 500 cards per design, whereas digital printing, you can have 20 or 50 cards at a time. I really liked the feel of offset, so I just thought I would take the plunge and invest all my money into these products. This made me very poor. All my money was sitting on my shelves, not being sold, especially because I don't know if a product is going to do well. For small businesses, cash flow is king. It is so important to manage your finances so that you're not negative all the time and waiting to be paid out. Being a few years into my business, I have a much better idea of what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. I know that my tote bags are going to sell out, but it might take a full year for them to sell out. Other things like stickers and bookmarks, they kind of have a faster turnaround rate, so I don't mind buying them in larger quantity. I mean, it's hard because the more you buy, the more you save per unit, and it is important to lower your cost per unit. What I would do differently in 2024 is to buy products in smaller quantities, even if you're paying more per unit, and seeing how they do once you sell them. If something sells really well, that's amazing, and you can just make your reorder in a higher quantity. If a product isn't doing well, there's no pressure because you're not trying to sell 500 units of something that nobody wants, and it gives you time to rethink or redesign that product. I will say you can't judge a product too fast. I've had a lot of cards sell really well in their second year, but not sell a lot in their first year. But again, it really helps to not be negative. Another note, if you have to order something in a huge quantity in order to make it affordable for you to sell wholesale or even retail, you might want to rethink that product or manufacturer in the first place. You want to make sure that your products are priced so that you can make a profit from selling either wholesale or retail. And if the cost of the product is so high, it might not work for your business, and that's totally fine. I've had to do a lot of shopping around for manufacturers to see which one has the best cost for me. And honestly, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. For example, tote bags are really expensive for me. And so I try not to sell so many of those wholesale, and I try to keep them retail because that's the only way I'm going to have a healthy margin of profit. And even though I love my manufacturer, I'm continually shopping around in the background to see if there is a way I can make it more accessible for wholesale as well. Another mistake I made when launching my business was offering assorted products. These are like card sets that have one of each design in it, like a sticker pack that has 4 different stickers in it. This is something that's really popular on Etsy. And because I started on Etsy, I just thought I should make like a bundle like that too. But I quickly realized with wholesale, it's very hard to merchandise and sell these products. For example, if there's like a box of cards on the shelf and it's 8 different cards, you have to be able to see all those designs on the back of the box. Like the customer won't immediately know what they're buying. So your packaging has to be extra clear. I mean, it's hard enough trying to grab someone's attention with just even one type of card. These assorted sets are also really hard to package, and I find that the SEO is really hard as well. Unless the concept is really strong, you're kind of diluting the product description by having so many options in that one product. It's also hard to track which card is doing well. Selling them individually is a lot more helpful. Similarly, mix and match is really hard too. I offered mix and match card bundles for 2 or 3 years. Every time I got a mix and match order, I sighed because I didn't want to pack it. Customers would write which card they wanted in the description box. My website wasn't able to track which cards are actually selling. And then I would also have to read what they wanted and go to the shelf and find the card. It's really hard to make your process efficient when you're doing that. The one card set I do offer is my compassion card set. And this is just because I feel passionate about it. It's okay to make business decisions that are not always the most optimal or efficient, but this is just something I want to do, and that's okay too. Okay, the 6th mistake I made was investing too much time into social media, particularly Instagram. Instagram is great. It's a free marketing tool and it allows you to humanize your brand and to connect with customers, but Instagram does not always convert to sales. And I was spending just a colossal amount of time on Instagram when the people buying off of Instagram was a small fraction. I do still think it's important to have like a very visual grid and to like introduce your brand through this tool because so many people are on it. But to spend hours and hours per week coming up with posts and reels, like it just does not equate to sales for me. And so this year I'm really focusing on doing more Pinterest, digital ads, and I still want to grow my Instagram, but I'm just gonna be batching my work and being a lot more efficient with it. I mean, this is a recent learning, clearly. I'm gonna track my hours on the app and just be more intentional about figuring out what works and what doesn't, rather than just like having fun on the app. The second last mistake I made was getting too personally invested and attached to my products and taking it personally when it doesn't sell. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably an artist yourself or someone that wants to start a small business. Obviously, we get very attached to our work and our ideas. I mean, we're spending hours like perfecting the lines and getting excited to show the world what we've made. Time and time again, the things that I think are going to be bestsellers are never bestsellers. And the things that I think are probably not going to sell, that I spend way less time on, do very, very well when I post them on my shop. The learning here is to treat every product like a prototype. It's kind of the same as my cash flow problem. Like, don't put thousands of dollars into this one product thinking that it's gonna sell out and everyone's gonna love it. Treat it like a prototype. I mean, you can still get excited about it, like you want hype around it, but don't expect everyone to like it. And don't be so sad and devastated if it doesn't do well the first time. I'm learning to be less of a perfectionist and to become better at being more iterative with my work. And so being quick to take feedback and criticism and being quick to implement changes and to try to fine tune my work to make it better and better. Okay, the last mistake I made when starting my business was not being more in tune with the numbers and the analytics and the data. Collecting data from day one is valuable. These days, we have software that collects data automatically. Instagram has their insights, Squarespace, Shopify, like you can download all the analytics and the reports. I didn't look at my data or numbers for a very long time. I went with my gut a lot. But at the end of the day, you're running a business. Like, this is not a hobby. It's important to make data-driven decisions. And unless you look at the data, you're not gonna know what is doing well, what's not doing well, where you're wasting your time, or where you should spend more time. I think a lot of my other learnings came from my data. I'm spending too much money on this. I'm spending too much time on Instagram. I only learned these things because my data told me so, and the data does not lie. 2024, I wanna have a better relationship relationship with my analytics. I want to know where my customers are coming from, how they're shopping, and this is obviously going to help me allocate my time and resources better. Like I said before, I've dedicated Friday mornings to look over all my dashboards and not be so intimidated or scared of it. I feel you. It's scary. It's scary when you don't know what you're doing. It also helps to ask a friend if you know someone that's better with numbers than you, or an accountant or bookkeeper to help you out. It's worth the investment, worth being informed about your own business, and it is definitely gonna help you. So those are all the mistakes I made in the past 3.5 years of running Sale a Paper, and I've learned from them. I'm learning from them. There's no way you're gonna start out perfectly. So I'm actually very encouraged by my own list of mistakes because it shows me how much I've progressed and how much I've learned and grown as a person. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of vlogs and other small business type of videos. And let me know if any of these mistakes resonate with you, or if you've made a mistake that I didn't talk about. I would love to learn from your mistakes as well. And part 2 of this video is going to be 8 things that I did really well when starting out my business. And I hope that one helps you too. Until next time, bye.